Wow. I don't know about you, but I know about me. The only thing I can do right now is mess it up. Were those videos inspiring of Kat and Tiffany and James and his family? I had the opportunity to tour Agape not that long ago. And I'm heavily involved in the pro-life movement, as many of you know. And I was just blown away about the hands and feet of Jesus Christ's servant leadership that is happening in that place. I think we'd do everyone a great favor if we'd give Leanna and her team and everybody a round of applause that's involved with Agape. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk for a while. And then Leanna's going to come back up and she's going to release some pretty big news, some pretty big information, pretty big vision. And then I'm going to come up again. But in the interim, let me just reiterate. If you're prompted at any time tonight, God laying on your heart that you want to get involved with Agape, I would suggest, especially after what you just saw, that you go all in. This is our time. And let me begin with good news. I travel all over the country. Last week at this time, I was in Alaska. And it's easier to speak in Alaska because they don't know me, okay? It's harder to be a prophet in your own hometown, right? But state after state after state and across this country, America is embracing a culture of life, and Roe v. Wade, I believe, will be overturned in our lifetime. But when I used to coach basketball, I used to talk to our team about how do you walk off the floor when you lose? And more importantly, how do you walk off the floor when you win? And right now, we are winning. The life issue is winning. Even people that used to be opposed to it are now embracing a culture of life. And when we win, I would suggest that we remember the why we do what we do. Why are we in this? Because we love God with all of our heart, with all of our soul, with all of our mind, and with all of our strength. And His most prized creation is the sanctity of human life. And we're in this because we love our neighbor as ourself. Amen? So when you take a look at Kat, and you take a look at Tiffany, and you take a look at James and his family, they are our neighbors. The husband, the wife, the baby, all of them caught up in an unwanted, unplanned pregnancy. They are our neighbors. And then what inspires me about Agape, probably more than about any other pro-life ministry that I know of, is that they are tangibly, you can see it, are being the hands and feet of love for our neighbor as we love ourselves. And what a great model of Christian leadership. Memorial Day 2004. Memorial Day 2004, they unveiled the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. And when they were unveiling the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C., my dad, who was in World War II, was being the MC at the Sheldon Memorial Day service. Sheldon's located right between Bethlehem and Jerusalem. Orange City and Sioux Center. I can say that, but I'm Dutch, okay? So he's giving the speech in Sheldon. He's giving the MC address. And I'll never forget, because I used to be a high school teacher. I used to be a high school basketball coach. I used to be a high school principal. I'll never forget when he stopped and he looked at the high school band. And he looked at the high school band, the young people, and he said, you know what they say about my generation? They call my generation the greatest generation. And then he said, don't ever let it be said of this country that the greatest generation lived, they served, they died, and they are buried. He said, you need to choose to be a great generation. He said, when your country needs you, you need to choose to step up and to stand in the gap. And I believe if my dad were with us tonight, he would look at us and say, we need to choose to be a great generation. And I hope tonight when we leave that we'd be inspired to choose to be a great generation. It's only fitting that I would talk about my dad because for my entire life, I think I've been pro-life. I can't remember a time when I wasn't pro-life. Matter of fact, I think I know the time when it became very evident to me that I'm pro-life. I was laying on the family room floor watching TV in our home, 1009 10th Street, Sheldon, Iowa, and the phone rang on the wall. And I'm laying on the family room floor taking in one of 3 channels that we could get, and 2 of them were fuzzy, and the rabbit ears. And I'm being fairly obtuse at this point. I mean, I got everything kind of tuned out. The phone rang. My mom always turned into a different person. She was really nice when she answered the phone. And right away, I could tell that something was wrong. And I could tell it was my sister on the other end of the line. And she was counseling my sister like, no, Sandra, just calm down. Sandra, take a deep breath. Sandra K., it's going to be okay. And I could tell through this exchange, it just got heightened and heightened and heightened. And pretty soon I heard my mom say these words. She said, well, Sandra, truth be told, we didn't want Bob either. My whole life I've been pro-life. My sister was pregnant with her 4th child, and my mom was trying to counsel her that it would be okay. When I was a teacher and a coach, I used to joke with my basketball team that one day I prayed that God would bless me. He would bless me and Darla, my wife, who's here tonight, of 38 years. We got married when we were 12. But part of the story you're going to hear tonight is our story. But I used to joke with the basketball team and joke with my students in accounting classes and marketing classes and entrepreneurship classes that one day I pray that God would bless me with 5 boys composed exclusively of my own genetics and that I would have my own basketball team because I was quite sure we could win a state championship that way. Well, Darla got pregnant, and Darla woke me up one night, and it was time that we had to go into the doctor's office. We're going to deliver our first child. And I remember I was all gunned up, and we went in to the Boone Hospital, Boone, Iowa. We lived in Jefferson, Iowa at the time. We made the 30-mile trek. I'm in the delivery room, and I'm doing the best I can to do this thing called Lamaze breathing. And I never have been able to keep a beat. You know, Dutch people can't dance. I can't keep a beat. And so I'm trying to do Lamaze breathing, and I wasn't doing Lamaze breathing very good, to where Darla finally said, Bob. I said, what? She goes, stop breathing. I thought, you cannot mean that. But lo and behold, not even sure how it happened, but out came a little boy. And when that little boy came out, I know, for the pastors in the room, this is not theologically correct, but I commissioned that little boy right then, right there, that thou shalt be a point guard. We had our point guard, Hans was born, all of a sudden Darla gets to be pregnant again. Gets to be pregnant again, we're in Jefferson, Iowa. Yeah, we take the trip from Jefferson to Boone. We go to Boone, we're in the 2nd delivery. This time I'm not even trying to breathe. The NCAA tournament's on the TV. I'm watching that. And all of a sudden, here comes our 2nd child, and it is a boy. And I thought, yes, thou shalt be a shooting guard, Joshua. So I had my point guard, and I had my shooting guard, and we were well on our way to our basketball team. And then June 13, 1993, Darla woke me up in Marcus, Iowa, where I'm high school principal at this time. And we're going to take a 25-mile journey to the north to Sheldon, Iowa, our hometown, to deliver our third child. And when we delivered our third child, it was taken by C-section. The baby wasn't pinking up. Doctors, nurses, everybody rushing in. And I'll never forget when a doctor came up to me and he said, "Bob, we've called in a life flight from Sioux City, Iowa." And the next words hit me like a ton of bricks. He said, "Babies with issues do not belong in rural hospitals." I thought, babies with issues. This is my baby. This is Darla's baby. We graduated from kindergarten together, from 8th grade together, from high school together, from college together. We've been together forever. This is supposed to be my small forward. Babies with issues. We took the journey, my dad and I, from Sheldon, Iowa to Sioux City, Iowa. We were going through Lamar's. And we were going through Lamar's. I saw the life flight helicopter carrying our son to the Sioux City Hospital. And a flood of emotions hit me when that helicopter went over. And the thoughts I went is, what am I going to do if this baby dies? And then more poignantly, I thought, what am I going to do if this baby lives? We met with the doctors, and they said, we have no idea. He could have hydrocephalus. He could just have a large head and a frail body, and his body will catch up. He could be dead in a matter of hours. He could be dead in a couple of days. We just really don't know. I remember finding a telephone booth, which is really hard to talk to high school kids today about what that was like. And I went in the telephone booth and I put in the coins and I dialed the Sheldon Hospital. And I told Darla what I had learned. And Darla's question to me was, "Bob, what are we going to do if he isn't right?" And being the man of the house, all I could think of, coaching instinct, we'll get through it. We'll get through it. And in the first 2 years of Lucas's life, there was 5 life flight helicopter rides, needed to be resuscitated 3 times. But it was one Sunday at First Reformed Church in Sheldon, Iowa, where Darla and I went to the adult Sunday school class, and Darla was holding Lucas after the class. And the guys and I, we were talking about important stuff like who won the game last night, who did this, blah, blah. And then Darla looked at me and said, "Bob, he's not breathing." And I scooped Lucas up, went into a classroom, and started rescue breathing with Lucas again. We went to the hospital in Sheldon. He had developed quite a reputation at this time that here's Lucas, here's Lucas, here's Lucas. Life flight now to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Darla went on the helicopter with him. And after I got Hans and Josh situated, I drove the 70 miles from Sheldon to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And I had a fierce conversation with God. Have you ever been there? Just a transparent, unvarnished conversation with God. It was like, what are you doing? This little boy's done nothing. This little boy's done nothing. He doesn't deserve the seizures. He doesn't deserve the life flights. He doesn't deserve the needle pokes. He doesn't deserve the blood draws. He's done nothing to deserve this. If it's something about me, take it out on me, but leave him alone. And I knew it couldn't be for Darla, because Darla was like a saint growing up. Matter of fact, when she would do something kind of wrong, you know what her parents would say? They say, Darla, if you keep doing that, we're going to ground you from reading. I was like, give me that punishment. But I knew myself all too well. And I knew that if God had a revenge mechanism in him, Lucas would have to be for me. So why not just take it out on me? I got up to the ICU room in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and there's Darla with Lucas and the doctor says to us, if Lucas repeats, he's now been stabilized, if Lucas repeats what he did this morning at church, do you want us to save him? Or do you want us to comfort him and let him go? And now there's a doctor questioning the life of our son. And after I said, yes, we save him, I walked out just furious with God. And I crossed that threshold, and no more than I crossed that threshold, I looked into an ICU room adjacent to Lucas's, and there was a little boy who was not sick, who was not disabled, but in the ICU room because some adult in his life decided to discipline him with a lit cigarette from head to toe. And it was like God taking me and shaking me awake and say, Bob, get a grip. Lucas will always be loved. He'll be loved by you. He'll be loved by Darla. He'll be loved by Ruth. He'll be loved by his grandpa and grandma, by his brothers. He will be loved. And it was that next morning when I was doing quiet time and Darla was in Sioux Falls with Lucas. It was that next morning when I read a section of scripture that I probably read many times, but it just hit me afresh. And it was John 9, 1 through 3. And you'll remember the stories where Jesus and the disciples, they happen upon a blind man, right? As they happen upon the blind man, the disciples have a very real question for Jesus. And the real question is this: who sinned? Who sinned? Did this guy sin to create his blindness, or did his parents sin? And Jesus' response, no one sinned. No one sinned. This is so the glory of the Father might be displayed. Are you kidding me? Through a guy's blindness? Are you kidding me? Through Lucas's disabilities? That God's mighty works would be displayed through that? But what really hit me was no one sinned. Get off the Dutch guilt trip for a while. No one sinned. This is so the works of the Father might be displayed. And how many Down syndrome children have we aborted? And I'm thinking we're robbing God of his works being displayed. When people encounter Lucas, they'll say, I don't know what it is, but I see the presence of God. I feel the presence of God when I'm with this little boy. Hans wrote a letter about, our oldest son wrote a letter about that, about feeling the presence of God when he's with Lucas. As a matter of fact, it reminds me a little bit when there was a fundraiser for a Jewish community, and they asked the dad of the disabled son, Shia, to come up and speak. And this was a school for children of disabilities, and the dad got up to speak. And the dad said, you know what, I love God. I love God with my heart. I love God with my soul. He said, but I believe my God is a perfect God. And my God is a perfect God. Where is the perfection in my son Shia? And then he told a story. He said, one day I took Shia away from school and we were out for a walk. And Shia walks very clumsily. But we walked by this park and there was a baseball diamond and kids were playing baseball. And Shia was pulling on me saying that he would like to get in the game. He would like to play. And my dad thought, oh no, Shia, you can't play. And Shia wouldn't give up. He wanted to get in the game. He wanted to be on the diamond. So finally the dad got up the courage, go to the chain link fence, and said to one of the boys, you know, this is my son Shia. He really would like to play in your game. And the kid who was at the chain link fence said this. He said, listen, we're down by 3 anyhow. We're going to get beat. He can be on our team. So Shia went on the team that was down by 3. All of a sudden, 1 out, 2 outs, and now it's Shia's turn to come up to bat. And the dad is just fretting like, oh no, Shia's going to make the last out. He's going to feel terrible. The pitcher throws a ball. Shia takes a swing and he misses. He's never swung a bat before. The pitcher comes off the mound and he underhands it to Shia. And Shia again takes a swing and he misses. He's never done it before. A young man comes out of the dugout and comes up behind Shia and puts his arms around Shia and grabs the bat with Shia. And the pitcher throws a slow softball to Shia, and between Shia and his now teammate, they hit the ball, a slow roller, to the pitcher's mound. And when they do, his teammate says, "Run, Shia, run, Shia." The pitcher fielded the ball, and in going to throw it to first base, he threw it well over the first baseman's head. Shia got to the first base, and the first baseman said to Shia, "Go to second, go to second." And the whole team's yelling now, "Run, Shia, run, Shia, run, Shia." The right fielder who got the ball now understands what's happening. He throws a ball well over the shortstop's head. The second baseman now takes Shia, he points him in the direction of third base, and he says, "Go to third, Shia, go to third." "Run, Shia, run, Shia, run, Shia." And he got to third base, and the left fielder threw it way, way past the catcher. Both teams now run, Shia, run, Shia, run, Shia. And Shia hits a home run. And Shia's team wins the game. And the dad says in that fundraiser, he said, God's perfection was displayed in those young men that day. The response by you and by me in a fundraiser like tonight of Agape. Where's God's perfection in an unwanted pregnancy? Where's God's perfection in a child with disabilities that people don't want? It is in our response to it. Matter of fact, Darla and I have a special angel we call Ruth. She was my high school secretary when I was high school principal in Sheldon. She moved to Sioux City when we moved to Sioux City. She's one of those people that she just gave and she gave and she gave. She'd come to our home and she'd take the other kids away, Hans, Josh, and Logan. Hans, Josh, and Logan, take away. Sometimes she would tell Darla and I to leave while she stayed. She would come and sit in the hospital room and she would just sit there and sit there and sit there and sit there and not say a word unless we asked her for her advice. Just served and served and served. God's perfection, I believe, was found in Ruth. But I'll never forget, I'm running for governor in the years 2010. And our oldest son, Hans, is now a senior in high school at Hinton High School up in northwest Iowa. And their basketball team's really good. Matter of fact, they're undefeated, 13-0. And the local news station names Hans the athlete of the week. Now, I don't know what you guys do when your kid gets named athlete of the week, but when my kid gets named athlete of the week, we watch the special, okay? So Darla and I sat down at the 6 o'clock newscast, and we're watching the special. And they're talking about Hans and his basketball attributes and all those types of things. And his teammates are commenting, his coaches are commenting. It's a really nice athlete of the week segment. But then the sports anchor got on after the segment is done. He said, we're going to have an expanded version of Athlete of the Week at 10 o'clock. And you don't want to miss it. I looked at Darla. I'm running for governor. What do you think he said? Is he endorsing my opponent? At 10 o'clock, we tune in to the 10 o'clock newscast, and again, they run the same segment about all the attributes, an undefeated team, his leadership, all those kind of things. And then Travis asked, the sports anchor Travis, he asked Hans, I've seen you take it up a notch when your team requires you to take it up a notch. He goes, you go above and beyond like no other kid I've seen go above and beyond. I want to know what inspires you. And we didn't know this. He said, I write Lucas on the inside of my shoes. Because he'll never run. He'll never walk. He'll never play a game. He'll never know what it's like to hit a winning shot. And I believe that I get to do this and he can't do it. So it requires me to give my best. Wow. Requires me to give my best. And I look at us tonight and I say, where are we at? God in Malachi is very, very clear. He wants our best. He wants our best. Lucas today, after 5 life flights and multiple resuscitations, seizures, you name it, back and forth, all that kind of stuff. The kid who wasn't supposed to live for 2 days, nor 2 weeks, and then in Boston we were told not 2 years, is 28 years old today. And his life is having a dynamic impact. But tonight you hear a story like Lucas's story. You hear that life is winning. You see the videos up here of lives being changed, of Agape being the hands and feet of Jesus Christ. And I believe as life is winning, what an opportunity for the church. What an opportunity for the church to step in and to tangibly show what the gospel looks like. That we all fall short from the glory of God. We've all messed up. We all deserve God's wrath. But God reconciled us to himself through his Son, Jesus Christ, who is our Lord and who is our Savior. And because of what God did for us, we're going to go all in our love for him, our love for our neighbor, and for our prize, and for his prize creation. You know, another thing my dad probably would have said is he probably would have said, I'd rather see a sermon than hear a sermon any day, especially after I would speak. I'd rather see a sermon than hear a sermon any day. I'd rather have you walk with me than merely point the way. The eyes are a more ready pupil than ever were the ears. Good advice is often confusing, but example is always clear. I would challenge us tonight. You have a tangible way to team up with a ministry that is making a tremendous difference in this community to men and women and babies and families. To step in the gap, go shoulder to shoulder. And one day, you'll look at your children and you'll look at your grandchildren and you'll say, you need to choose to be a great generation. Thank you so much for allowing me to share our story.